Yes, sir.
But here we are, guys. Sales Bro Pod, first one in a long time. I don't even remember what episode this is, but been meaning to hop on here with James. James, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Pleasure, bro, as always.
So let's. I want to start. I like to dive into people's backgrounds, upcomings, and how you obviously got into like the online business space, the online sales space. But just for context, I don't know, like what are you doing most recently that, and then we'll take it back from there and then kind of build up to the most recent projects.
Fantastic, yeah. Was if we're starting recent, I just finished up after a year closing with Iman Gadzhi team, probably the thing I'm kind of most known for at the moment. But yeah, just after starting out on my own few ventures, I partnered in two companies since leaving sales training, running the B2B side of that, and then I'm starting my own thing with a friend of mine based on like content creation, sales optimization, and so on. But yeah, if we're gonna go back the way, I won't go too far back. I'll kind of keep it. I just want everyone to know, like I'm probably one of you guys if you're listening. I grew up in the small town, that sort of story, small town. Fantastic parents, probably the best parents I could have asked for. I think Tate talks about how when you have phenomenal parents but not a lot of money is probably the best thing ever because you have to get out of that, and they give you the values and the morals to do so. So over the last kind of 5-6 years of my life, I always knew I wanted to be extremely entrepreneurial. They always pushed me, never said I couldn't do it. They always pushed me towards the non-college path to an extent. And yeah, just I came out of school straight away. Knew it was a stopgap in my life where I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I kept faith and knew that like the right thing would come in front of me if the work was done beforehand. And a lot of the stuff I'm writing about now, like the free content stuff I'm writing about right now, is becoming the man before you build the empire. And I think it's the most important thing that any young person maybe watching this can take on is even in the word become, you have to be before you come. And I think it's the most important thing you have to do if you want to build a good empire with good foundations where it's not easily like I think if you build your business and you aren't the person who is worthy of building that business yet, it will fall like 10x as fast as you build it up. So I think it's very, very important. So the 6-7 months or even a year or so after I'd left school, the main focus was to take in as much information as possible, acquire as much knowledge and wisdom as possible to when I got the opportunity, I could actually see it because I'd done the work in the past and I was there to take it. And I was well versed enough in the sales sense to be able to hop on, Iman's offer.
Yeah. So you didn't go to like formal college or university?
Nah, I never was interested.
Yeah.
I think it's I think everyone's kind of waking up to this fact that like realistically, if you can earn 10K within 6 months doing remote sales, even DM setting to an extent, you can probably earn 7 or 8K, and that takes. I even use that as leverage in sales calls when people are like, "Dude, like this 1,500 is like really, really like it's a lot of money right now." And then I zoom out and I'm like, "Okay, how much do you pay for rent in your accommodation for college right now?" And they're like, "Yeah, about 1.5K." And I'm like, "Okay, so you're paying the same amount that it is for this program with the expectations to get the 10K a month for something that you're paying for 4 years, not even in your actual school, but on the accommodation to go to that school on top of the hundreds of other thousands that you're paying as well." And then they're like, "Oh shit, yeah, my expectations are probably a bit skewed."
Yeah.
So yeah, never wanted to go down the college route. Parents were always extremely supportive of that. And I think to some people, if your parents aren't supportive of that, I think the one thing that you have to do is be able to stack up like a value stack in a sense of like, okay, if I don't want to go, what I'm going to do if I don't go. You can't just say I want to make 10K a month online. You have to show them how you're going to do it and what the
Yeah.
vehicle is.
You were I know you're most recently from Ireland. Were you born in Ireland?
Yes, sir, born and raised. I'm Irishman,
Cool.
so it was Patrick's Day. It's Patrick's Day on
Yeah.
Sunday, so
That's
I got a
probably
lot
why.
of Americans saying,
Yeah.
"Dude, like my great 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 grandpa was Irish."
Yeah. Yeah, they probably loved you in the States on that day.
Yeah, it's a good
Um,
experience.
what was your like how'd you know you were kind of like more entrepreneurial minded coming up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know why I was built that way. I think my parents were. So the reason we didn't have a lot of money growing up was because in entrepreneurship there's no consistency, and my parents were kind of two entrepreneurs, but it wasn't high scale entrepreneurship to an extent. It was just kind of like trying to figure things out as they go, which I love them for, and they gave me so much. The reason I am who I am is because my parents. But I was always like selling lollipops in school when I was like 12, and flipping that to buy a haircut on Friday evenings and so on. So I always was selling or looking to do something besides the normal. Everything I've ever done in my life is like just look at Taylor Welsh made an Instagram post recently. He said, "Look at what everyone else is doing and just do the opposite." And that's, I think, truly, if you're coming from that point of view, you will be successful. So, yeah, that's kind of the thing I grew up on. Just wanted to do something different than everyone else.
Yeah. Were you said your parents, like, they didn't really bug you too much about going to college. Did you ever at any point in time like want to pursue any kind of like higher education or like professional career path, or were you just like that was never for you?
There was the only degree I was considering was event management, because I feel like I lead teams very, very well. And it's one of my strong points in business in general. So I was like, okay, what's the one thing that maybe could be applicable to me while I'm growing my different businesses and so on the side? And I was considering event management, but then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to college, and the one thing that I thought about the most was your network or your circle in college just isn't the circle that you need to get to where you need to be. So I think that was the most important thing to me, that shift in my mindset. I was like, I can't be surrounded by this mindset all the time. And look, the people who are listening to this and are in college and maybe feel like you're in that mindset right now, it's fine. I feel like everyone kind of comes to their own stage of realization to where I need to make a change. And hopefully, if you listen to this right now, like if you look at me, look at yourself. Genuinely, look. It's like looking in the mirror. I was right there beside you. So, it just takes taking that one step and kind of getting out of that headspace and that circle.
Yeah. What was what were some of the first things you tried, kind of like being business minded? Like, did you start little stuff as a kid, like lemonade stand type stuff, or
Mm.
like what were some of those first like business ventures of yours?
Yeah. I suppose back in the early days, it would have been like the lemonade stands or the lollipops in school, or the sweets in school, flipping the sweets, and your teachers would take the sweets off you, but I'd hide the box of the money and so on. Like, there was a few different schemes that we were cooking up back in the younger days. But if we're talking online space, when I was like 16, 17, I got into trading. I had no idea what I was doing, didn't even have a program or so on. I remember the football pitch and losing like 1.5k. My only 1.5k I had to my name, because I invested in like a Tesla stock. Like, I used some sort of leverage in the trade that I didn't know I was using, and it like went like this, and I was like, what just happened? And but I never complained or I never cried. I was like, okay, I'm going to learn from this mistake and not do it again. I think that's I feel like my mindset's what kind of got me to where I am right now. Is like, even from a young age, we have these losses. You always will have these losses, but like the mindset where it's just you learning from that mistake rather than like sulking over it or
Yeah.
complaining, if that makes sense.
Yeah, dude, you only lose when you quit.
Exactly.
So obviously you didn't quit after that. You just kept going and you're doing cool things now. Getting into like the whole remote sales space, like how did you stumble
Mm.
into that?
I don't know. I kind of forget. I was doing like some labor work at the time. I was like fixing pallets I was fixing pallets for like 5, 6 months, like really labor intensive, like 9, 12 hour days. And the only reason I chose that job was because I could wear earphones in that job position. And
Mhm.
wearing earphones allowed me to kind of experiment with different things, kind of get into different spaces, see what I liked, and then indulge in that and drown in that information like 24/7. I was like 12 hours, the same repetitive thing over and over again for 4 months. But like, I knew it was a stopgap because I was taking in this information. And about like the red car theory to an extent, where if you're not aware that you're looking for a red car, you won't see it. And it's a case of like the same thing where if you're not doing the work beforehand, if you're not aware of what you should be learning, then subconsciously you won't even see these opportunities that you would see if you're actually doing the work. So yeah, just indulging in content for a long, long time. And then I seen Iman post a story looking for an SDR, and at the time I had no idea what it was. I just seen sales in it, and I was like, okay, I feel like I'm good at talking. I've had some success in it in the past in real life, so let's go for it. And then I applied, and then got an automatic email back about 2 hours later saying nope. And then I was like, dang, that was like, I really was looking forward to that. And then sent another email in, sent another application in, another email back, nope. And I was like, okay, what is it that's like not letting me through to this application? So the third time I applied was actually walking down my friend's lane to my friend's house. And after the third time I applied, they were like, okay, he's being persistent to an extent, but he's also trying to provide value. He seems solid. Okay, let's give him an opportunity. Had an interview that evening with Iman's team. Everything was always so fast. So I had an interview that evening. Had an interview with the sales manager time straight after that, like half an hour after that, and then within like an hour or two was like, okay, you got the job. So this kind of was, it was out of the blue, but it was like lots of work beforehand to kind of get that overnight out of the blue thing.
Yeah.
And then one story I'd like to share actually from the sales hiring process was, yeah, we had the first interview was with like Max and Arthur, some really good guys back at Educate, and we like got on really, really well because obviously you look for culture first when you're hiring. It's one of the things that like most companies know, you have to look for culture first because, you know, first who, then what. So culture wise, we got on fantastically well. We were talking about F-350 trucks. We were talking about country music. We were talking about like, you know, that sort of like lifestyle, and we got on very, very well. Then it was like the more serious stuff. Then the next round with like Max Thompson at the time, sales manager. And this, keep in mind, never had a sales role before, never had an SDR role, never had a closing role. I didn't even know what it was. And then he was like, okay, bro, we're coming towards the end of the interview. For the next 60 seconds, I need you to present yourself to me, sell yourself to me without saying or ah once, and we'll consider you for the job. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I've never done this before. And for the next 60 seconds then, I don't know what it was. I think it was like Christ who took over me, the Holy Spirit took over me, and just for 60 seconds, somehow got across the line without saying or ah once. And then, you know, after like 10 minutes after that, he was like, okay, you got the job. So it was a tough experience, but it was just like, it was so fun. Kind of going through that process and working with that team for such a long time.
Yeah. That's I mean, a lot of guys that get into this space, their goal is to like sell for someone who's reputable, someone who has like, you know, lead flow to keep the sales team busy for more than just a month or 2 months. So it's just interesting to see like the way that you get on these big teams is either through like kind of thinking outside the box and being very persistent, or like already having a resume and then getting in through somebody that you know, right? And in your case, you were literally like fixing pallets. Was there a requirement for like previous sales experience on that, or was it just like anyone who's interested?
I think there was, and I think I could have lied. I think I could have said like I did sales for my parents or whatever it was for their business. And I hadn't, but I don't see like with companies like Educate, we're really, really good companies. People have this misconception where like you need to have year, 2, 3 years of experience. Actually, it's quite the opposite. And well, maybe it was just Educate, maybe it's just Paul. But what they actually looked for wasn't previous experience. They actually looked for willingness to learn. They looked for if you want to be a sponge. They look for, you know, do you have some sort of not a high IQ, but someone who's able to learn fast and adapt fast. Are you that person? And they actually seek that more for them sort of roles like SDR role at the time, and closing roles, because people who are experienced are normally probably at that stage motivated by money. And when you're kind of at a stage where you're trying to scale your offer, you're trying to build a good team culturally, if you have people that are motivated by money, you're probably not going to have too good of a cultural team. So you need people who want to be there for the vision of the company. And to an extent, like I could tell them back to back on the interview, you know, the company, what it stood for, what the core values were, what the offer was, who the sales manager was, who the CEO was, and so I could say that off by heart, so they knew I wanted to buy into that vision. And sometimes you guys might have a misconception where these big companies want the most experienced, expensive, high close rate sales reps, and they probably do for some positions, but trust me, there's definitely positions where people, if you're willing to learn, willing to soak up 6 months of dirt, and willing to just become a sponge in general, and believe in a vision and die for it. I have the Educate logo tattooed on my arm here. If you've seen my Instagram, you've probably seen it. I have the Educate. Me and my best friend Jake had the company logo tattooed on our arm because we were like that willingness for the cause. And that's the sort of reps that like people actually look for, reps that are just that willing in a sense. So if you feel down or you feel like you're underqualified, trust me, if you're just willing to learn and willing to be a sponge, these companies will give you offers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's pretty underrated because a lot of people that get into this space, they get into it through exposure of like other people who are helping, like through communities or courses, programs,
Yeah.
whatever. And a lot of these people who are selling those, and like, I mean, I sell one, but a lot of people who sell it, they're selling it with the wrong expectations. They're selling it, it's like, dude, you'll make 20K a month working 2 hours a day from the beach here.
Mhm.
and then they get into an interview situation like the one that you just described, and they're like,
Hmm.
the only thing they care about is like making 10K a month,
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
nothing else. Like I don't know. So I think it is.
That's so important, bro. That's such a good point that you just hit on. This online space is so backwards. It's like crazy. I'm writing about it right now as well, about how the expectations has actually completely skewed what it's like to work online. Like this whole like 20K a month on the beach stuff is such BS, man. It doesn't exist. And it just gets people in the wrong mindset. I know I'm partnered with like a really small, well, not a really small, there's a lot of people in it, but it's not an expensive, like sort of sales training thing. It's like money monthly. And like our reps, the feedback from our reps is that like they're always, the best mindset wise. They always show up in time early, and they're always as committed as whatever. But that's because like we've set them expectations into their head. We're like, this isn't all sunshine and rainbows. You're gonna kick dirt. You're gonna kick mud in the tires for like a long time before you deserve to even get to 10K a month. Because people have this innate thing where they feel like they deserve 10K a month when they get into the space straight away, which is really really strange because that would take you 20 years in any other industry. So yeah, things are very very backwards right now, and I feel like that might sway. I think people are waking up to like, people aren't buying from that vacation sort of sense anymore. They want genuine people work with you, bro. And I've had this conversation with people about you. People work with you because you're so genuine and you show transparent results. You don't just say like you earn 10K by for working 2 hours at your desk, whatever. They buy from you because of how truly genuine you are as a person, and you're actually good at what you do, and you care about what you do, and you put time into what you do, and you don't just sit in your account and flex Lambos or these things. Even though you could, you don't do it because like that's not what life is like on a day-to-day basis. So that's why people buy from people like you, and I can encourage anyone who's watching Dylan, just like take notes, because he's like living proof that you can sell through just transparency and authenticity.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I think even
Nice.
like with some of the marketing that I do, I mean,
Mm,
yeah, it attracts the right people too. Like I don't want to.
mm,
I mean, and just as a business owner, like you don't want to attract people that are desperate, that need it to work, because then
yeah.
they're stressing. Their quality of everything they do isn't going to be as good, and then if it doesn't work, they're just like, "Oh, I'm screwed now. Like I'm going to be homeless or whatever." Like you never want to put anyone in that situation, and so I mean, my whole thing that I tell everyone is like when I came into this space, man, I was in a sales job where I was making good
Mm,
money, and I left, and I was like, dude, if I could just make 3 grand a month and get the proof of
mm,
concept, I can pay my
mm,
bills and go from there. I know 10K is possible, I know
mm,
20K is possible, but
mm,
um, just wanted to start at
mm.
three and like break away and then get into it. But that's
I like that, but I'll hit on that as well because I was talking about this in a coaching call the other day, and they were saying, my vision is, my goal is 10K a month, and my goal is 20K a month or 100K a month, and I tweeted this. I was like, they should be your visions, but your goal should be kind of, if you're not at the first 1.5K or 3K, your goal should probably be reverse engineered down to the exact amount of calls or outreach that you have to do in regards to how you can get to that 10K a month. So if you feel like you want to get to 10K a month, okay, how much is your average deal? Okay, how many outreaches do you have to do to get the average deal? What's the notice rate? What's the booking rate? What's the close rate? You need to reverse engineer all these down to know exactly how in control of your vision you are, because some people just shout 10K a month, 10K a month. But if you're not in complete control of what it takes to get to 10K a month, you're not going to get there. It's just a vision, it's just a dream. And dream without actions behind it, it doesn't work. So people need to, if you're listening to this and you're not at 10K a month, that's great. Have that vision written down somewhere and aspire to be like that. But really do focus on your first 1, 2, 3K a month online. You'll learn so much from what it takes to get there that the next 10K or the next 7K a month will come very, very, like, I don't want to say, I hate using the word quick, but it will come easier than the first 3K.
yeah, and I mean, once you get to the point where you get results too, I mean, you can kind of,
Mm,
once you become undeniable in this space, like your baseline is then 5K a month. It's then 8K, 10K
mm,
per month. And
mm,
also for the people listening, if you, especially if you do have sales experience in another industry or you've owned your own agency, like it is possible for you to make 10 grand a month, like in your second month. Like it absolutely is. We've got
mm-hmm.
guys who do it in the
Yeah.
community that I run, but like that's not the case for like 90% of people, because one, you have to be good,
Mm,
and then you have to know the right people. Like you have to know people like James, like me, like recruiters or managers or offer owners. And so especially if you're going into it like a lone wolf, you just need to extend your timeline, and just if you make $3,000 in your first month, you make $5,000 in your first month, like take that as proof of concept and just go all in, you know?
Yeah, really
So,
agreed. I think a big misconception is like, well, people, you won't refer someone to an offer who hasn't done the work beforehand to be worth an offer. People's misconception of network or being able to connect with myself or with Dylan is that like, oh, I deserve to be able to connect with them. I deserve to put in an offer. Okay, show me the proof of the pudding. What have you done to deserve this offer? People need to really reevaluate themselves and see like, I know there was a guy who texted a friend of mine, Paul, the other day, just expecting to be able to have a coaching call with him or whatever it was, or be putting an offer with him or close for him. And Paul was like, like what experience do you have? He's like, oh, I haven't closed yet, but I've done X, Y, Z or whatever. Okay, you need to like have proof of concept, as Dylan said, before you are able to like network or get put on offers like this. Because it makes no sense for you. It damages your reputation.
Yeah, and man, it's with the influx of people coming into this space with like poor expectations around timelines and what's possible. Man, once you get that first, well, I mean, there's levels to it, but like once you get that first 250K, 500K, a million close, like there becomes just like a moat, like an increasing sized moat between you and everybody else, and like a lot of people don't stick around long enough to get to that point, or they don't meet the right people to get to that point, and then they resort back to W-2 job or building pallets because it's just safer, right? So,
no hate toward people who build pallets, by the way.
Yeah, no. I mean, but yeah, man, the expectations in the space are really backwards, and I think it's kind of refreshing to hear your take and like how you came into this, because like, I mean, you didn't do it by like, buying into some program and then feeling entitled to 20K a month. You did it through just like cold application, being crafty, being persistent, like applying 3 times. I know if someone applied to a job I had 3 times, I'd be like, all right, this guy's, whether he's qualified or not, he's kind of on my radar because he wants it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, bro. They nailed it there. So many people, even with Educate, like for that position I got, there was around like, there's thousands of applicants. I don't even know how many. I think Max mentioned like 15,000 applicants. I'm not sure that was total over like the time that we were there or whatever it was. But there was thousands of applicants. And we even talk on meetings, or we used to talk on meetings to this day, of like, you'd see a name in the community pop up over and over again because they're in there consistently over a period of time. Same with applications to jobs. You'd be like, damn, this guy's applied like 5-6 times. And to an extent, if you've already had an interview and you applied like a few more times, we're like, okay, I don't know. But if you want to get on the radar, I guarantee they'll talk about your name. If you apply like 5, they're going to be like, this guy again. Okay, let's just give him one shot. And that's all it takes. But do the work beforehand. Don't expect. Be prepared for when the opportunity comes, to have done the work beforehand, the research, the podcasts, the reviews of the closing calls, the mock calls. Don't come into that. Don't even seek them opportunities, because you're wasting your time until you've done that foundational work beforehand.
Yeah, that's true, man. It's good to talk to someone who has that experience, because it's real, dude. Like a lot of people listening to this, they're probably like, a lot of people who listen to this podcast are actively looking to like get into the space or like grow in this space, and so just hearing a perspective from someone who's done this at a high level, kind of literally grunt, get in at the SDR level, like no sales experience, to moving up into closer, which I want to talk about that too.
Yeah,
but it's just good to like see the perspective. So let's talk about that though. Like, so you went from SDR, I assume you went in there, you worked your ass off, you did pretty decent. Like, how did that SDR experience go? And then how did you get into closing?
Yeah, SDR for me, like if you're motivated by money as an SDR, I promise you're not gonna have a fun time. So myself and 2 or 3 other Irish guys who got hired at the time, we were like, I think I probably have Snapchat memories, at least Snapchat, but we probably have Snapchat memories of us up at 3-4 o'clock every morning just trying to get, like, I remember one day I broke the record for sets on Iman's team, and it was 41 sets in a day. In like 24 hours. I was flying back from San Francisco to Ireland at the time. 41 sets in a day. Like, we were relentless, and we weren't motivated by money. We were like motivated by, we knew each rep would give us a lesson that we could apply to the next rep to make us even better and better and better. And the thing was, which could be kind of unique to in a sense, like, I didn't expect to be a closer. I actually wanted to go into leadership at the very, very beginning. And it wasn't until me and Paul were sitting in a sauna in Maryland, and we were just like, and he was just like, do you want to, try closing for the intern team at the time? And I was like, we've done so many reps in SDR. It's the exact same thing, but you're just speaking. The only difference is you don't have the time to reply as you would as an SDR. So if you're an SDR, you probably have a minute or two. Like, whereas closers, like, you need to be on the ball, like thinking fast. But once you've done so many reps of your offer, you see the same thing over and over and over and over again, to where, like, when it came to the closing call, it felt like a natural transition. So the people who are starting out as SDRs probably don't have expectations in regards to money, just have expectations in regards to how much knowledge can I apply, how can I be a sponge to everyone around me, how can I apply as much value as I can to people around me in that sense. And if you seek that rather than seeking money, and you seek knowledge and wisdom, the opportunity will come to yourself. And we even talk about leadership in our company. We used to talk about how, leaders aren't people who say, I'm a leader, I'm a leader, I'm a leader. But the person who does the work so often, so consistently, way more than everyone else, who just naturally becomes a leader and is chosen to be the leader by everyone else as a group consensus, not themselves, to be that leader. So that's like what I have to say to USDRs is, don't seek to be the closer. Give them no other option but to be like, this guy, we have to give an opportunity because he's smashing numbers as an SDR. Same with leadership. If you want to be a leader, give them no other excuse but to be like, we have to give him a chance because he's doing extra outreach. His EODs are always on time. He's showing up the calls every single day. He's a true leader. He speaks from his mind when he has to. If you want to become a leader, if you want to become a closer, give them no other option at that level than to consider you for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. The one thing that I think it'd be interesting to get your perspective on here. Obviously, you're a younger dude. Like, you kind of have the flexibility to travel around, live the laptop lifestyle. But a lot of people coming into this space now, man, they're coming in from like corporate background, and maybe they have like mortgages, or they've got families, and they have like a certain level of earning that they need to hit, or else they're in trouble. How would you recommend that person breaks into this space? Let's say they have some sales experience, nothing crazy, but they have some. How would you recommend that person kind of get into the space and progress as fast as possible?
I can 100% attest to this, because the greatest gift I've ever been able to give my parents is my mother is now a closer at Warrior Babe, like a woman's fitness offer. And she's been smashing 17, 20K months from, like, I never wanted to, my parents would never allow me to retire them. They always wanted to make it for themselves. And that's the one thing I always respected about them. They'd never appreciate me handing money. They'd actually feel guilty to an extent. They wouldn't take it. They always wanted to excel in what they were good at. But my mother's like the most intelligent, well-spoken. She's just such a nice person that, she just went into fitness offer, smashed it straight away. So, okay, so how can you transition from corporate role into closing, obviously under a time constraint? I'd say, yet again, it's the foundations that you build as you're going into it. So if you're going into a new offer and you want to leave your job or whatever it is, for the 2 or 3 months before you've actually hopped in this offer, on the way to work, on the way back from work, in the shower, on your runs in the gym, have you switched it from music? Have you switched it to podcasts? Have you switched it to, you now have so much information in your spare time that you can apply directly straight away? The thing is that we're lucky with is, we can go into a job where we can kind of learn, we have time, there's patience with us, we don't necessarily have expenses and so on. But if you're coming from a corporate job, just be patient, take 2 months, switch the music to podcasts, indulge yourself in the information, and then as it comes to it, you'll be like 10x more prepared than you would have been if you just went in cold turkey. And now your earning time has gone down from like maybe 2 or 3 months of rougher months to maybe a month even, or 2 months straight away, to where there's money coming in. And there's also an aspect of it where you kind of have to maybe sacrifice a few things, either living things or bills, and kind of put them on the back foot if you believe in yourself and the offer enough. Probably don't do that. Probably not the smartest thing to do, but yeah. Dylan will recommend if you should do it or not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really one to say there's a time and a place for it, but like burning the bridge or the boats or whatever you want to call it. It's like, dude, if you're like, the reason I felt like I was so confident to jump into this space and go for $3,000 a month is because I knew like if I absolutely needed to, I could go back to my old job and make $100,000 plus per year. So like, and luckily at the time I was a younger dude, low expenses. So like, I had money saved up. It wasn't life or death, but I would say like, yeah, don't burn the bridge or the bridges, save some money up. And then also the other thing is like making sure you're getting into a good offer. Cause like, I'm sure you've seen it, man. Cause now you're working with those guys on the sales training. You're probably seeing guys get into like different types of offers. Some of them don't always pan out. It's the same with my group as well.
Yeah.
It's just like, sometimes you truly do not know until you are in that role,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
What do you look for? What do you advise people to look for when they're looking for like a good offer, one that's not gonna have fake on target earnings and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, that's a good one. So my number one method of outreach that I kind of teach, I'll actually show you right now. So let's go on Instagram. Let's go to who do I have up recently. This method of outreach works best. So go to someone. So this is one of my a buddy of mine. Let me see if it focuses. Uh, no. Okay, but we'll just go from here. Okay.
Yeah.
So a buddy of mine. So find someone in the space that you maybe aspire to be like. Okay. So Josh, he's in the sales space, and he's who I work with right now. Go to the suggested tab, right? And that will give you people that do exactly like similar work that he does, or like maybe saying sort of mission statements or values or so on. So find something that you're convicted in, that you correlate with, that you're passionate about. Go to the suggested tab and just do cold outreach from there. That's what I always recommend, and that's what like gets the biggest ROI for our students. Go to the suggested tab, find people that you correlate with, that you want to work with. I think bigger offers are people don't really get on huge offers unless you're kind of connected in the sense, or you have some sort of history. But if you want to get an offer that's doing 1, 2, 300K a month and you want to grow with them, I think that's the best method, because you want to be aligned with what you're doing and what you want to be convicted in what you're selling. And I don't think money even matters that much if you're actually truly passionate about what you do. Um,
Yeah.
so hopefully that answers your question. I don't know if it did.
No, it does. I just think like, dude, if you get into this space with some restrictive timeline on I have to make $15,000 in 3 months per month or
Mm,
whatever, like you can do that, but a lot of times you're going to disappoint yourself.
yeah,
It's all about expectations, man. Because if you're
yeah,
expecting
it is.
$3,000 per month and you hit that, you're like, dude, I'm happy. But then if
Yeah,
you're expecting 10 and you hit 3, you're like, this sucks. I'm going back to my old job. It's
yeah,
like, if you're looking for security, like security and like just immediate high earning potential, no matter where you're coming from, this might
mm,
not be the space for you, because
mm,
sales inherently, like there's ups and downs, like that's a whole other thing that,
mm,
people need to know about, which I don't think
yeah.
people are not aware of, but yeah,
I'd
man.
actually, I'd actually challenge that as well, because like, if you're going into something and you're having an expectation to where you're probably new to that space to an extent, and you have an expectation to be at 10, 15K a month within 3 months, I think you need to self-evaluate and self-analyze to like why you actually even believe that in the first place. Is it something that's actually true, or is it something that you've been told? And like realistically, it's not that it's not possible, but like you should really, really self-evaluate and see like, okay, what's the average rep doing in the first 3 months? The average rep probably, if they get an offer in the first 3 months, it's probably making like 3 to 5K a month within that first 3 months. There's obviously outstanders that people that excel extremely fast are getting a really good offer, luckily. But if you're in that mindset of I need to earn money fast, just really reevaluate why you think that in the first place, because it's not possible in any other industry in the world. So like, why do you think it's possible with remote sales? Just reevaluate your expectations.
Yeah, that's what it all comes down to, man. It's because they saw a guy on YouTube who told them they can make 20K a month from the beach. That's why. But
It's true.
no, man, let's talk a little bit more about kind of your experience closing for an
Mm,
offer that seemingly a lot of people wanted to be a part of, right? Like
mm,
what was your experience there, and overall just being on that team? Because after speaking to you the first time, man, I feel like that team, and I know JJ, and I know some
yeah.
others who have been there before. Um, it just seems like the culture is so good. But like, what was your experience closing there?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll address culture as one as well. But with closing, people have this misconception that if you're on Iman's team, everything's like a layup. And I think the booking of the meeting to an extent is probably like a given. Like your lead flow is generally good. And there's obviously months where it isn't great, like Christmases, or there could be off months, or something offers are striking as well that used to be, which is the same for everyone. But all of our stuff is like off videos, etc. And to an extent, yes, we get more bookings, but these people that are coming on are so uneducated to an extent on why they want to do it or what it is. They're like, yet again, it's like this dream state mindset of I want to achieve X, Y, Z in 3 months' time.
Hmm.
And the number one issue with that was it was every single objection was like a self belief one. Like it was on every single call, because these people, whether were like, the youngest person I closed was 12 years old. I closed him on the call by himself, Apple Pay. He was like a young Asian kid from Australia, Mason, if Mason ever hears this. And then the oldest person I closed was like 76 or something, whatever. But there was always the average would be like 18 to 20. But the number one thing they all suffered from was like this self-belief thing. The reason they watch people like Iman is because they have this dream that they want to be like something else, but they're not there yet because they don't necessarily believe in themselves. So every call was a self-belief objection. Like there was rarely like layups or here's my card. They were more in the DMs where they're on call. They're scared. So like it was a lot of self-belief objections. So we had to master that to an extent. So trust me, it wasn't easy.
Yeah, no, I'm not, because I know like with volume comes there's different levers that you pull, and when you open up the volume lever, you also open up kind of sometimes lesser quality, right? Like you're taking more shots, which is a good thing for a sales team. But I'm curious, man, like you said, every call, and I could totally see this happening. You were facing like self-doubt objections. Like what is like your go-to? I mean, you've probably handled it like 100 times over. Like how do you do it?
Yeah, obviously. So our main focus would have been, when I say objections, I don't necessarily mean like it came up at the end of the call all the time. I mean like it was a consistent factor that we had to nail home during discovery to make sure that it wouldn't show up at the end of the call. So as we always talk about, is we always want to pre-handle them objections in the discovery. I think with pre-handling, all you need to do is self-analyze every objection that you can get, or the main objections that you can get, and then ask the questions based around that objection in the discovery phase. Is that just like the main piece of advice? If you have a time objection, you ask like you temp check them either in the report or the agenda or the discovery to make sure that like this is a priority for them right now and that it won't come up later on in the call. So you need to be asking these questions in discovery. And then when it comes to actually handling objections themselves, I always say like acknowledge, don't accept. I never say like, yeah, I completely agree. You should feel that way, man. And I always say like, yeah, got it. Okay, that makes sense. I never say like, and you never should accept what they're saying or make it okay in their head. I'd always say like, okay, got it, that makes sense. And you challenge them on it. You give them like an analogy, or you'd say, okay, typically when people say this, it's either one or two things. It's either X or Y. Which one is it for you? And then you kind of go from there. Or there's a few different ways that you'd handle different objections, of course, but I love analogies. You should become obsessed with analogies. And I think analogies come from life experience, and analogies come from listening like to the right podcast or the right people, and you can kind of use or reword their analogies and so on. But analogies are so key in sales. You need to become obsessed with them.
Yeah. Hormozy's so good at those.
So good, man. He's so good, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
We actually met Jacob Hopkins there in LA, which was really cool.
Yeah. I haven't seen any like of his like sales. I don't know if he has like sales training online that's like public like that. No. I think he has a group, but I wonder how he does it compared to Hormozy, but kind of besides the point. Yeah. But no, man. I mean, what? So you're selling, with where you're at, it was obviously B2C. It's more of like a volume thing. Like it wasn't a crazy high ticket. I don't know. Just now that you're not actively, I don't know how many calls you were taking per day. I'm sure it was a good amount.
Stop.
I want to say I saw some calendars at one point. But yeah, dude, what's like now that you've kind of stepped out of that, you're looking into the new things, like your time there, it seems like it was pretty transformational for you as a person, as a sales rep, as a potential business owner now. Like what were some of the like 2 or 3 biggest takeaways that you're looking forward to like moving forward with and implementing into your own things?
Yeah, absolutely. The cultural aspect is the number one main thing that I love to bring moving forward. I think it talks about it in Jim Collins, his book Good to Great. It talks about how it's first who, then what. And what that means is people show up to work because of who they get to be surrounded by on a daily basis, not because of what the money is per day. So we used to show up to work. There's months where, the lowest earning SDR could be doing, or the average SDR could be doing like, really low numbers, like low 4-figure numbers. And then they wouldn't care because they get to show up and everyone around them was like extremely good at what they did because you just became obsessed with learning then. And the number one thing I'll be bringing forward into my companies moving forward is just building that cultural aspect, that vision, that belief that everyone is showing up because of who they get to work with and what the vision is, rather than like being motivated by money to an extent. Number two takeaway from Iman's team. I think the great thing about working with a company that was, Iman's young, it's newer company, is I got to see a lot of what to do, but also like a lot of what not to do to an extent. So, being in like a lot of leadership meetings, at like 19 years of age is just going to be so beneficial to me going forward, of like how I can not apply certain things that went wrong in the wheel, and apply things that went right. And I think like leadership is definitely a huge one. We definitely going forward will be looking to, how do I phrase this? Let me think how I want to phrase this. Going forward, I think leadership in my companies will be like the main thing. I want to make sure that I'm hiring the right leaders, people who are interested in debate, open debate, and asking why all the time. If our SDR has a certain opinion, that he feels heard to an extent, and it's never coercion. It's always debate, and it's always you're open to hearing other people's opinions, because that's how your company grows, because they're the people on the ground, they're the people putting in the dirty work, they're the people having the conversations every single day. So like, I running companies will never feel like I know more than they do, because they're in the trenches. So that's another lesson I learned there. But yeah, is there anything that you feel like I could be taken for granted that I feel like I learned over there? Do you feel like there's anything that you want to hit on in particular that could be interesting or could be of use to your audience?
No, I mean, I don't want to make it like too cookie cutter salesy. Oh, how do you handle this?
Yeah,
How do you do this? Because
yeah.
like, I mean, you can go on YouTube and find that stuff, right?
Mm,
But I'm more so interested in just like your unique experience, kind of getting to where you are, and then kind of what you just described, those lessons. So, I mean, we touched on it. I don't know how many times already. Just like the culture is like everything, man. I mean, yes, you need to have an
mm,
opportunity worthy of acquiring good talent, but at the same time, it's like those guys when things get rocky, like if they're not bought in, they're out, and things will
yeah.
get rocky. Like I
Mm-hmm,
don't think anybody in this online business space at any scale is going to tell you otherwise. Like, well, they might if they're trying to sell you like a business model. I don't
mm-hmm,
know, but like usually guys are pretty transparent. Like, dude, this stuff is, it's not like labor intensive, so I guess it's easy in that sense, right? But like, long hours, you're definitely maybe not at the beach all the time. Like, you could
not all
maybe
the time. Most
find
of
a
the
spot
time, though.
under an umbrella before your laptop overheats, and then you're back in the office just ripping sales calls. So
Yeah,
no, I think
like
it's been
I,
good.
I think a perspective I had there was like, there's days where sales calls would suck. You just don't want to be there, and I think to myself like, 60 years ago, there's people in World War II in like trenches, like going across battlefields, getting shot at from all angles with all sort of military weapons. And we're sitting on our asses taking 30-minute Zoom calls, collecting like a K each time we take every 30 minutes. And we like complain about our lives to an extent. I think if you have to really rid that victim mentality if you want to be successful in life in general. Um, really zoom out and think about how life was like 60 years ago, and to most how it even is today, and how genuinely fortunate and grateful you should be to be sitting in that chair taking Zoom calls on a good offer. And you're literally like 0.00001% of the world, the opportunities that you have lying at your feet. And to be, especially the best thing about being in a good offer is it's literally a free, actually it's a paid kind of, what's the word where like you go to Google and like you do it's free internship to like,
Yeah.
or paid internship to like these 8-figure year companies. So I've seen the vehicles and the moving wheels of an 8-figure year company for over a year, and grew up through it from like the very, very bottom and to the top. And to an extent, you have to understand like being in an offer is a lot more than just getting paid for your SDO work. If you're really want to take things to the next level, you have to become self-aware of the moving wheels, or how leadership handles X, Y, Z, or how certain methods of outreach, or what is that company doing to be earning 8 figures a year that you're not doing right now in your life, and just be taking notes and always learning and digesting things from that perspective as well. Because a lot of people get the close, and they even close for like 6 months, like, oh, I want to be a sales manager now. They want things to get easier straight away. if you haven't been paying attention over the last year to how that vehicle is working, you could hop into your own company right now, start up your own company, get it running really, really fast like we're doing right now because we paid attention over that last year. So if you're in sales right now, if you're a closer and you're wondering what the next step is, just really pay attention to how leadership are running things, how the company's running things. That would allow you to do your own thing in the future.
Yeah, that's good insight. Yeah, man. That's I mean, you could close forever and be just fine. You could be well off, but some people,
Yeah,
a lot of salespeople pretty entrepreneurial. It's like, all right, dude, I've got this resume here now. Like, what's the next thing? And like,
yeah,
leadership is like the best skill I would say to add on to that.
yeah.
I did want to
It's
touch on
sad though,
this.
isn't it?
What's that?
I think it's sad how like I think every sales rep, I'd actually every sales rep like be earning 17, 20K a month. It's like I need more and more and more. It's sad. Um,
Hmm.
you should if you're watching this, you're earning that amount of money to really reevaluate. Like, what are you chasing right now? Because I feel like to me, once I hit that like 17, 20K a month mark, all I want is like a truck and a ranch and a good house and like a good wife, a good morals and values. If you're chasing materialistic things, you're never going to be truly happy because there's always going to be a next level, next level, next level. Really, if you're earning that amount of money, why you should okay, it's fine to want more, but ask yourself why you want more. If it's material things, you're really chasing your own thing. If it's conquering, starting new businesses and new adventures, that's cool. But if it's for new watches to an extent or new cars, really ask yourself why you want that. Because I think
Yeah.
you're tripping. You're tripping.
That's funny. I wanted to ask you before you wrap it up, man. So you're from
Yeah,
Ireland. What was your
yeah.
experience like? Um, I mean, from what I understand, Iman's team is kind of worldwide, but like, what's your experience like doing this stuff in Europe versus doing it in the States? I know you've been in the States quite a bit. You've traveled
Mm.
around, and what's your experience like being in the States so far?
Great question. I think if you're in Europe, you should count yourself as a blessing because Europe's certainly 5 or 10 years behind the US. It's like so far behind it in regards to the remote sales space, in regards to business in general. Like I can't describe how far it is behind. Like we're starting a sales trend in Europe, and like it's picking up so fast because there's no one for Europe. There's no like you think of Europe, you don't know a name for sales. In America, there's so many. You have like Luke Alexander. You have like you've just you can think of probably 10 names off the top of your head. For Europe,
Yeah.
there's no big names, so that's our mission right now to kind of conquer that space. My
Mhm.
experience with the US is I feel like I'm obviously a diehard Irishman, but if I wasn't an Irishman, I'd be a diehard American man. Just I love this. I look at the flag and I think about culture as well. Like they've made us feel this sense of culture, and this that everyone is free to an extent, even though maybe it's not. But everyone would die for that flag, and I think that's another sign of culture that the American government has or the American people have built. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love America. I love the countryside. I love country music. So
Yeah. Have you been to Texas yet?
no, I need to go badly.
Yeah.
I'm going to Mexico soon, so I'm going to go from. I'll probably take a trip up to Texas. Like, yeah, when I
Yeah.
when I get down there.
Yeah, man, there's so much to do. Like it's not something that you do in a day or 2 days.
Yeah.
Depends what you want to do in Texas. But no, man, I know we're running up on time. I got some calls
Mm.
booked, but I want the people to connect with you. Where can they find you?
Yeah, just on Instagram, James Galligan underscore, I think it is. I want to get that fixed, but yeah, James Galligan underscore. I don't really do Twitter too well. It's not my forte. So
Sure.
yeah, Instagram's the best place.
I'll grab your links and throw them in the description. But dude, I appreciate you
Cool.
coming on. It was good to reconnect and help
Mm.
you extend the podcast tour that you just went on. Um, no, guys, if you have any questions, I mean, I'm sure James has a lot of insight he could share that we didn't even
Mm.
get into on this. Like, reach out to him, DM him. I'm sure he could spit some game. No, man, we can wrap it there. I appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure, bro. You're a gent. Thank you very much.
All right.
Talk soon, everyone.